and welcome to MMS Sessions number 7. As usual, this is a fully interactive sessions. Get involved on Facebook and also Twitter. Tweet us at MIDI School. So, Tony, if you'd like to introduce our special guest.
Thank you very much. Okay, good evening and welcome to all those who have attended here tonight and those who are streaming live. At the MIDI School, it's a place that is really good at helping people to make brilliant music, but we also believe in trying to help people to have sustainable careers. And obviously, we have to sometimes deal with the dirty subject of money. Royalties are a very, very important means for generating revenue for musicians and artists and people who want to make music. And Daniel Jones, our guest tonight, is an expert on it. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Daniel Jones. Thank you, Daniel.
Hello, everyone. So my name's Daniel Jones, and I'm an Education and Outreach Manager at PRS Music. A little bit about myself. So I left university and was in a couple of bands in Manchester, and then I decided to move down to London to get a job working in the music industry, and started working at PRS in the member service department just under 8 years ago. Then a couple of months ago, the opportunity came to move back up to the north of England and become the outreach manager for the north of England. So my role essentially means I go around colleges, universities and industry events and talk about PRS music, and also meet up with our members up in the north of England. We've got about 12,000 members just in the north of England, so I kind of keep an eye on emerging talent and also go around to talk to some of our bigger members, make sure they're happy with their service they're receiving and things like that. So to start the presentation, this slide is a good indication of everything I'm going to talk about today. So we're a royalty collection and distribution society. Our members are songwriters, composers and music publishers, and our customers are music users. We issue licenses to customers which allow them to use our members' music, and the money raised through issuing the licenses are paid as royalties to our members whose works have been used. So I said this is a nice summary of everything PRS Music is about, and I'm going to go into each one of these areas in a lot more detail over the next 30 to 40 minutes. If you've got any questions, it might be worth keeping them to the end, just because you'll find a lot of questions that might come to you, you'll find that answered on the next slide. So, to start with, I'm going to start in probably not the most interesting area, copyright, but it's essential to everything we do at PRS Music. So, what is copyright? So, in terms of musical works, copyright is automatically created when you write a new song and you are designated the owner. So as soon as there's a tangible form of music, it's copyrighted. So that can be from, if you can write sheet music, you write down the notes and you write down the lyrics, to recording the song onto a 4-track or onto Logic or GarageBand. Copyright is protected by law in the UK by the Copyright Designs and Patents Act of 1988, and it gives protection to creators. It means people can't rip them off, and it means they're allowed to monetize their creations. If you think of a song as an invention, so an inventor, it's only right that they get paid for people using their invention. So, as I said, copyright allows a song to be considered the property of the individual that creates it or individuals, and it allows them to be recognized as the owner, so people can't plagiarize them or say that they wrote it. Copyright allows the creator to be rightfully recognized as the copyright owner and also monetize their copyright. So how does this all relate to music? So as I said, copyright is automatically created when you write a song. It lasts your lifetime and also 70 years beyond your death. So if you write a song today, you're the copyright owner for the rest of your life. And also if you pass away, the next of kin have the right to earn royalties beyond your death. It gets a little bit more complicated when you get to songs that are co-written, and also that 70 years isn't the same throughout the world as well, but in the UK it's 70 years. And in terms of musical works, like I said, it also gives you full authority to say how your copyright is used. And the next slide will kind of go through the different areas of copyright. So the rights you have as a copyright owner of your songs are to say how the song is performed, so whether it's performed live, how it's communicated, so that could be on TV, on radio, how it's adapted. So this is quite apt for being in MIDI school. If you have the right to say how it's sampled, or if people want to do different versions of your track, you get the right to say no. You also have the right to say how it's copied, so if a record label want to press it onto a CD and a vinyl, you've got authority on that. You've also got the right about how it's issued, so on the internet, if it goes on iTunes or Spotify, you've got the right to say yes or no to that. And also rental and lending, so this is a bit out of date, but in terms of libraries and DVDs and things like that, you've got the right to say whether your works can feature on those. So when you join PRS, you essentially assign those rights over to us, and we look after them and monetize them for you. So just to confuse matters a little further, when you record a new song, there's actually 2 musical copyrights. So PRS Music takes care of the copyright in the composition, so the melody and the lyrics and things like that. There's also a separate copyright in the sound recording. This is usually owned by whoever pays or provides the service or the means. So that's normally a record label if you're signed to a record label. So I said every time you record a song, make a new recording, there's 2 separate copyrights. This slide will hopefully explain that in a bit more detail. So you've probably heard of PRS Music, and you've probably heard of another company called PPL, and you don't know the difference between us. So PRS Music take care of the songwriting part of a work, and PPL take care of the recording rights. So it might shock you to know that a lot of pop stars don't write all their own songs. So if you take a song like Rihanna's We Found Love, that was completely written by PRS member Calvin Harris. So every time that song is played, so Rihanna plays it at the MEN Arena, or whatever it's called this week, Calvin Harris earns royalties from that, and so does his publisher, EMI Music Publishing. Every time it's also played on the radio or things like that, PPL also pay Rihanna, because she's a performer. She sang on the song, Calvin Harris did the instruments on the song, so he gets paid from them, and Def Jam Records will get paid as well, because they're Rihanna's record label. So, like I said, it can be that a lot of you might write all your own songs, and you're the person that performs on it. So you'll get the money from PRS and PPL, but a lot of songs aren't written by the person who's performing them. Or you can have, I think there's quite a famous Kanye West song recently where it's got 21 different songwriters on. So every time Kanye plays that song or it's on the radio, we make sure all the 21 people that wrote their song, and probably their 21 different publishers, get paid money as well. So I've kind of talked about the difference between PRS and PPL, so now I'll focus on PRS. So as I said, we're a royalty collection and distribution society. You'll hear lots of different names like PRS for Music, PRS and MCPS, and not know how they're all related. So hopefully this next slide should explain it. So PRS Music is actually a brand name we adopted a couple of years ago. It's a brand name of the Performing Rights Society and the Mechanical Copyright Protection Society. So you can see why we came up with the brand name, because that doesn't really roll off the tongue. So Performing Rights Society is also known as PRS. That looks after the performing rights. So when songs are publicly performed, so whether that be a gig on a radio or streamed online. Mechanical Copyright Protection Society, known as MCPS, looks after mechanical rights. That's quite an old term, but effectively means when music's copied either physically or digitally. So that can be on a CD or vinyl or download or on novelty singing toothbrush shatter tracks, mechanical royalties. So there are actually 2 completely separate societies, but they formed an alliance just over I think in about 97 or 98, where it was decided that we're doing exactly the same work pretty much. We're using a lot of the same software. Let's form an operational alliance. So they all sit under the PRS Music brand, but they're still effectively 2 separate societies. It's 2 separate memberships to join both. So we have about 600 staff who work for both the societies. We use the same software. Like I said, we work in the same offices, but we are actually two different legal entities. So, who are PRS Music? As I said, we're the brand name of PRS and MCPS. We're royalty collectors. We're actually a membership-run organisation as well. So PRS is actually owned by its membership. So our board members are all members, whether they be writer members or publisher members. Every year we hold an annual general meeting where they're appointed, they're voted in by the other members, and they get to say how we'll run, what rules we have, and things like that. So we're completely a member organisation. So there's a version of PRS in every developed country around the world. So we have what's known as reciprocal agreements with 170 different countries around the world. So what that means is when one of our members' music is played in New Zealand or Japan or South Africa, the collection society in those territories collect the money, pay the money onto us, and we pay it onto our members. And likewise, if you're from Japan and you're a member of the Japanese society and you're on tour in the UK or you get radio play, we collect the money and pay it on to the Japanese society who pay it on to their member. So you can effectively, you're covered for the world if you join PRS Music. Hopefully this bit will work. Hey. And we're also a not-for-profit organisation, which a lot of people don't know. So once we cover our running costs, all the money we pull in goes to our membership as well. Some of the societies, particularly the American ones, aren't not-for-profit, but we are. So unfortunately, we don't have huge swimming pools or great staff parties or anything like that. So who are our customers? What constitutes a usage of music? And who are some of our customers? So if you think about it, most businesses are music users. So if you take the ones you probably know about, like broadcasters, so you've got likes of BBC, ITV, Channel 4 and Sky. They all use hundreds of hours of music every day on their TV shows, on the internet and on the radio. So we issue them a license that allows them to use our members' music. Also places you might not think about, such as shops, hairdressers and bars. You've probably gone around and seen our little sticker in the window of various places. So that means they're paying a PRS for license. So I'm not sure if you've been to any bars where there's no music playing, but you probably wouldn't stay there too long unless they've got quite a good drinks deal. So there's been countless independent studies that have done that have shown how much happier customers are when there's music playing, or how shoppers stay for longer in shops when there's music. So it's only right that the people that are creating that atmosphere are rewarded. Also, festivals and venues are also licensed by PRS because they use members' music. Looking more towards MCPS and mechanical royalties, record labels are music users as well. So every time a record label presses a record, they're required a license from MCPS on their PRS royalty. And digital service providers such as Apple and Spotify are also music users. So overall, we license over 350,000 businesses every year in the UK. If there wasn't collecting societies like PRS, it would be a much stranger place to work in. So every time the BBC wanted to play that Kanye West song I talked about earlier, they'd need to contact Kanye West and his 20 other songwriters and the 21 publishers, get agreement that they're allowed to use it, negotiate a royalty rate and pay that money onto them. So if you think how many hours of music is on every day on TV, it's just not realistic that that would ever happen. So through our licensing activities, we make it easy for music users to use music, and we compensate the music creators. So who are our members? What is a member? How much does it cost? How to join? And when is the right time to join? So our members are songwriters, composers, dance music producers, music publishers, and successors. So I kind of think the first three are all essentially the same. If you're a music creator, you're part of the songwriting process, then you should consider being a member of PRS. So the term producer in terms of dance music, and it's quite relevant here, kind of has two meanings. So you have people who write dance music, call themselves producers. We kind of term them more as songwriters. If you're part of the songwriting process, then you should consider being a member of PRS. If you're a producer more in a traditional sense of the word, of a band coming into the studio, they've got a song completely written, you're pressing record, then you shouldn't get any of the songwriting rights. You don't need to consider being part of PRS Music. It's kind of the waters have kind of muddied a bit more lately, where producers are getting more involved in the songwriting process. So a band can go into the studio, the producer will be, oh, I've got this really good beat that'll go with the track, and then they're contributing to the songwriting process, so they should get a credit as a songwriter. So we have thousands of music publishers who are also our members. So I'm not sure if you guys know too much about music publishers. So music publishers essentially assign songwriters and look after their songs. They do a lot of their administration for them. So they register their songs with us. They do their royalty tracking to make sure they're getting paid what they should do. They also look to exploit their copyrights. So exploiting their copyright seems like a horrible term, but it means they look to push their songs. So we have a lot of publishers who look for sync opportunities, which means getting your music on TV shows or on adverts or on films, which can generate hundreds of thousands of pounds if you go with a large advertiser. We also have a few thousand successive members as well. So as I talked about in one of the earlier slides, when a member of ours passes away, they can also elect what's known as a successor member. So it's usually a next of kin who will continue to receive royalties for at least 70 years. So if you think of someone like John Lennon, who died in 1980, his successor member is Yoko Ono, and she continues to receive royalties for every time a Beatles song or John Lennon song is played. So to join PRS or MCPS, it's a one-off £50 fee to join each society. Some of the other societies around the world charge annual fees. We don't do that. You pay £50 and you're a member for your lifetime. As I said, we're two separate societies. If you wanted to join MCPS and PRS, it's £100. If you're considering a job in music publishing and you want to join, it's £400 to join each society. Here are just a few examples of some of our most popular members at the moment. So songwriters from all different conceivable genre of music are members of PRS. It can be folk singers to techno dance DJs to complete pop acts to folk songs. Literally anybody, if you're a music creator, can be a member of PRS. Likewise, publishers. We range from the huge multinational corporations like Warner Chappell and Universal that have offices all around the world to just one-person operations, someone publishing his best mate's band in his bedroom. Literally anyone can join as a publisher as long as you fulfill our necessary criteria. So we represent over 110,000 different songwriters, composers and publishers at the moment. And we have about 1,000 people applying to join every month as well. You don't just have to be from the UK to be a member of PRS either. Some of the biggest American, Canadian, and Swedish songwriters are also members of PRS. How to join? If you want to join, it's literally a case of going to prsmusic.com, completing an online application form. We still need physical signatures. You need to print off the form, post it in to us along with ID, such as a photocopy of your passport or birth certificate. Pay the fee online, and in about a week or so, you'll get confirmation email and with a membership number. So if you've written a few songs, you're playing a few shows, you're getting a bit of radio play, what has this actually got to do with you? So when should you consider joining? So my role isn't a sales role. It's not going around places trying to get whole rooms of people to join PRS. A lot of my role is actually telling people not to join PRS. And to only join PRS when the time is right for them. So you should only consider joining if you're a musical creator. So if you're in a band but you're not part of the songwriting process, all the songs are written by one person, then you don't need to consider joining because you're not going to get any money from PRS. Likewise, if you're a producer who's producing records in the old sense of the word and you're not contributing to any of the songwriting, then you don't need to consider joining. Also, if you fulfill that criteria and you are actually a songwriter, but your works aren't being publicly performed, so you've written 20 of the best songs you'll ever hear, but they're just sitting on your laptop at home and they're not being played anywhere, then you don't need to join because you're not going to earn any royalties. So if you're playing live, you've been on the radio, you're getting significant online usage, then you should consider joining. In terms of MCPS, you should only consider joining when your works are commercially released by a label that isn't your own. So some people try and join MCPS because they're self-releasing their own album, but it makes no sense for them to join because essentially we'd invoice them as a record label, take the money off them, minus our running costs and pay it back to them, so they'd actually lose money being a member of MCPS. So it only makes sense to join if a record label that isn't you is releasing your works. Likewise, the start date. So we can only actually backdate your membership a few months. So if you join today, if you join in the second part of the year, we can only backdate your membership to the 1st of July. If you join in the first part of the year, we can backdate it to the 1st of January that year. We do get a lot of people phoning us up saying, oh, I had a really big song about 10 years ago, can I join and get all my money? And we have to say, sorry, it's too late. We didn't control your works at the time, so we didn't collect the money. So unfortunately, we can't give you the money. So if you're starting to play a lot of shows, you're getting a lot of radio play, don't leave it too late to join PRS because you won't be able to collect that money. Likewise, it costs £50 to join, so you've got to make sure it's cost effective for you to join as well. £50 isn't a huge amount of money, but it's significant enough that you'd rather have it in your pocket than sitting with us. So in the next few slides, I'll talk about the type of money you can earn being a PRS member. So if, say, your track's just on YouTube and it's been listened to 13 times by your mum, then it's not worth joining PRS because you're not going to get your £50 back. So these are a few different channels you can gain royalties from. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing a lot of this already and have your work getting used like this. So I'll go through some of the more significant and more interesting areas now. So concert venue schemes. So if you're lucky enough to be playing in venues that are run primarily as live music venues, PRS takes 3% of the box office and pays it on to the songwriters. Venues are required as part of their licenses with us to submit set lists to us. So if you're a band, you might have been asked to fill out a PRS form and the venue should supply it to us. But we also encourage members to always supply us with set lists as well to make sure they get paid as quickly as possible. And that can all be done through our website. So in Manchester, we're talking about venues like Gorilla, Band on the Wall, Academy and Apollo and the Arena. So every time someone like One Direction does their final tour, we make sure we collect 3% of the box office and pay the songwriters that made them popular the money they're due. Doing my role and going around the country talking about PRS, this next slide is probably one that surprises people the most. It's called the Gigs, Clubs and Small Venue Scheme. Sorry. So these are places that are live venues but aren't primarily live venues. So anytime you play live in a pub or in a club as a DJ playing your own songs, you can get money from PRS. It might not sound a lot, but you can get about £7 per show. That'll be split between all the bands on the bill and all the different songwriters as well. But if you're the sole person on the bill, you wrote all the songs, you'll get £7. Like I said, it might not sound a lot, but one of my best friends is a touring musician, and he's really good at making sure he submits all the set lists to PRS, and he earns a couple of thousands of pounds from PRS alone, just from being good at his admin and making sure he submits everything to us. So it can add up. That can pay for your recording of an album, can pay for petrol or diesel when you're touring. So it all adds up when you consider if you're playing lots of shows. So we're talking about places like, in Manchester, places like Gulliver's, Soup Kitchen, Castle Hotel, literally pretty much anywhere that's got a PRS license where bands play live, you can actually get a royalty from. It can either be under the gigs and clubs scheme, where you get some band show, or it can be the larger venues where we give about 3% of the box office. Festivals are also licensed as well. So if you play any of the major festivals in the UK, it'll be licensed by PRS, and you can collect royalties for performance as well. So if you're playing, even the smaller stages can be a couple of £100, and then when you get to the main stages at the Glastonburys and V festivals, it can be a considerable amount of money. It works pretty much the same way as the larger venues. We take 3% of the box office and pay it onto all the songwriters on the bill. So if you consider 150,000 people attending, tickets £200 a pop, it is a considerable amount of money. So we also send people set list collecting at festivals as well. So if you go to festivals, you might see a group of 4 or 5 people scurrying around with little PRS rucksacks. What they're doing is collecting set lists as well to make sure people are getting paid. So that's a recent example of a set list we collected from the Prodigy a couple of months ago when they were playing in Newcastle. So there's a lot of talk about how radio's dying and the future is all about streaming and online curation. But as you can see, you can still get paid considerable amount of money every time you played on the radio. So if you played on BBC Radio 1, you get £14.60 per minute. So if you've got a track that's 4 minutes long, that's just under 60 quid for every time it's played on the radio. It doesn't matter what time it's played either on the radio. So if you played on Annie Mac's show at 7 p.m, you'll get the same rate as if you played at 4 a.m. in the morning. So these are just a few examples of the different rates you can get being played on various radio stations. You'll notice there's quite a difference in the different rates, and that's because we look at the amount of audience a radio station has and the potential audience it has. So it's only fair that a track being listened to by 8 million people on Radio 1, which is a nationwide station, attracts a lot more royalties than a track that's played on XFM Manchester with a few thousand people listening to it just in the Manchester region. So that kind of explains the various rates. If you're a PRS member or you join, you can actually log into our website, and we've actually got a complete list of all the radio stations that we license and the per minute value as well. So if you played on any radio station in the UK and it's licensed by us and it's a significant station, you can look it up and work out what you're going to get as well. TV, also, as you can see, there's quite a lot of money to be earned to be on TV. So when I joined PRS, I was actually shocked at a lot of writers I'd never heard of were earning a lot of money, and a lot of those people we call media writers. They write music for television and film. So if you get a track played on primetime ITV, that's £134 a minute. So if you get your song played on the background of The Rovers Return Coronation Street for a minute, you'll get that in the bank from PRS. Again, this is all done on the audience size. For TV, we vary it a little bit to radio that we have prime time and non-prime time, so you get paid more money if you played between 6 and 11 p.m. rather than 3 in the morning. So that's why you can see the different BBC rates there. Digital royalties. This is probably what most people are interested in. So in the UK, a download is deemed 25% a performance, 75% a mechanical right. Streaming is 50-50, so you have to be a member of both societies to earn 100% of royalties. We do have to balance the costs of processing the data to the amount of revenue it brings in. So we actually get billions of lines of data from digital service providers, and we've got to marry that with the cost of actually processing it. So this next slide shows all the major licensees that are licensed by PRS for music. If you use on a smaller website where the cost of their license they pay us is only a few £100s a year. It's not cost effective for us to pay every usage. So if they pay us a few £100 but they use a lot of music, then we can't, it's going to be fractions of pennies. So, but these stations, you're more like, you're going to get paid, so per usage. I was just talking about this a little bit with Tony before. You hear a lot of songwriters talking about the amount of money they earn from streaming services. They'll get a statement and say, I'm getting pennies for thousands of streams. And this next slide kind of shows how the digital pie is split up. So if you have a digital service provider like Apple Music or Spotify, they take 30% of the royalties. The label gets about 60% on the master rights holders, and PRS and pays the money onto the songwriters get about 10% of the money. So there's quite a lot of debate in the songwriting community right now as to whether this split is fair. Because a lot of it is based on the old record deals, where you could argue these days a label doesn't have as much to risk financially releasing something digitally as they do on a CD, so should they be getting such a large share? So I think that debate's going to run and run. That kind of explains where the money goes. So when a songwriter says, I'm only getting this amount, you actually know that the digital service providers are actually paying quite a bit more. It's just, it's not going to the songwriters. And this is how we think it's going to go in the next 4 to 5 years. So 2014 was quite an interesting year for PRS and MCPS, because it was the first year where money for digital royalties actually exceeded money for physical copies, or we call recorded media. So we actually took more money in from online than we did for CD sales. And it was also the first year where streaming gave us more money than downloads as well. And if you can see this projection here, we actually think in the next few years that's going to get even bigger as well. So downloads are going to go down and streaming services are going to get more popular. You can kind of see that a bit at the moment with Apple Music, the way they've moved away from iTunes to streaming with Apple Music. And yeah, so we think the amount of money from streaming is going to go up. Just to talk about MCPS a little bit. So as I said, if you're signed to a record label that isn't your own and they're releasing an album or an EP, you can actually claim mechanical royalties through MCPS as well. So every time they say they press 1,000 of your record, we get a percentage of that and pay it to you as a songwriter. You can also get royalties from being on DVDs, on games, toys, and cover mounts as well. So if you're approached by a magazine who wants to put one of your tracks on their CD to give away, we collect royalties from that as well and pay that on to you. This is just a slide that shows how the type of money that comes in with PRS in percentage-wise. So as I said, we're taking more money from online than we are from recorded media now, and that's pretty much the same around the world as well. What's quite interesting is that most of our money actually comes internationally. So I talked earlier about the reciprocal agreements we have from different societies around the world. So along with America and Sweden, the UK is only one of 3 net exporters of music in the world. So what that basically means is British music is really popular around the world. So PRS benefits from that because we get quite a lot of money from overseas and pay it on to our members. So this slide sums the last few slides up quite well, and it talks about when it's cost effective for you to join. So this is how you can earn £100 from being a PRS member. As you see, being on the radio once or twice attracts significant more money than being streamed quite a bit. And again, all these amounts, you kind of need to consider the songwriting splits on a song as well. So if you're a sole songwriter, you'll get 100% of this. If there's 4 of you in a band or 10 of you wrote a song, that's split 10 ways. So this slide is a quick overview of how it all works on a very, very basic level. So we have our PRS member and we have our various licensees. They pay license fees to us every year or quarter that allows them to use our members' music part of their licensing agreement with us is that if they're a large enough licensee, they're required to submit playlists to us of every single song they play. They send us the name of the song, the artist name, and the songwriters as well. So that's why when you're releasing stuff, it's always important to have your name on the inlay or your metadata right when you're sending stuff out to digital service providers to make sure you get paid. PRS members registers their songs with us. We match the data of our members' songs up against the data we receive from our licensees, and we pay the money onto our member. I just added this slide for this evening's presentation because I thought it's quite apt. So we have a lot of specialists in PRS. Pretty much everyone that works at PRS is completely passionate about music. We're all pretty much in bands. A lot of people use their holiday up touring and things like that. We've got a few electronic music experts as well. We've got an electronic music manager, and he's taking care of our Amplify initiative, where we're looking to engage with electronic music writers and producers to talk about PRS, tell people how they can earn money, and just make sure they're aware of who PRS are and what we can do for them. Also through the Amplify initiative, we're evaluating things like digital fingerprinting as well at clubs and festivals. So things are a lot less manual, where we can install a device into clubs or at a festival, and I'm sure you've all got Shazam or something on your phone where it automatically recognises what's getting paid and reports it to us. So that'll improve the accuracy and time of distributions. A lot of people don't know about this area of PRS as well. So we don't just take money in from performances and mechanical royalties and pay it on to our members. We also fund musicians as well. So you might have heard of the PRS Music Foundation. It's the UK's leading funder of new music in the country. So since 2000, they've awarded 19.5 million to new projects. So they've got lots of different schemes. So I suggest if you're interested in getting funding for tours, for writing a record, have a look at the PRS Music Foundation website and speak to them over the phone, and they might be able to help you out. We also have the Benevolent Fund as well. So I talked a couple of times about when our members pass away, and they can continue to pay the money onto their next of kin. But quite a lot of them actually quite generously decide to pay all their future royalties onto a benevolent fund, which helps elderly members or members that have fallen on hard times, whether it be through illness, disability, or anything associated with old age. So I think they pay out about £200,000 a year to songwriters who've fallen on hard times. If you consider life of a songwriter, it isn't like having a normal job where you've got a pension to protect you. So the fund is a really good thing on helping people who've fallen on hard times. So I'll finish on this slide, which is just a few numbers. So just to conclude that PRS Music is a royalty collection and distribution society. We have over 110,000 members, music songwriters, music publishers from a whole different array of musical genres. We license over 350,000 businesses every year in the UK, and through our licensing activities, we allow music users to easily access music. And through raising these licenses, we pay royalties on to musical creators that helps them carry on creating the music we all love today. So thank you very much for your time, and do any of you have any questions?
Yeah, what are the main differences between a music publisher and a record label?
So
I'll just say that for people watching. So what's the difference between
Publisher and a record label?
a publisher and a record label?
Yes, that's a good question that a lot of people ask. So it's kind of hard to describe, but a music publisher kind of takes care of a song for its lifetime. So while you can move from record label to record label, or publishers kind of take care of your songs, for the lifetime of copyright. So they'll do things like if you're struggling to write songs, they'll help you get co-writes. They'll give you advances as well to help you, just to help your career. They'll also look to exploit your music, while a record label more focuses on actually releasing your stuff, whether it be on CD or, over the internet.
And the publisher would get a cut?
Yeah,
as well.
the typical deal is we've got protection in the UK where PRS says that a publisher isn't allowed to collect more than 50% of your performing rights. So typically a deal is 50-50, so they'll collect 50. They might also pay 50% of that onto you, but we never allow a publisher to completely take 100% of the money, because there's countless horror stories over the years about how record labels have exploited people, and some great musicians have never earned any money. So we've kind of got that in place to make sure publishers can never do that. There's lots of different types of publishers as well. There's people that just do your admin, or there's people that do the whole thing as well. A lot of publishers are closely connected to labels as well, so you'll recognise a lot of the names. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
I know you gave per minute values, but what's the minimum time that your track needs to be played for before you actually qualify for any royalty?
As long as it gets over 1p. So it depends on the length of your track and the value of the radio station. In terms of smaller radio stations, if you're played on like community radio, a lot of them we don't pay out what we call census. So every play doesn't equal a pay, because say they pay us a couple of £100 a year. As I was kind of saying with online, it's not cost effective for us to pay fractions of pennies to people. So what we do with smaller radio stations is we do things called sample dates, where we'll look at a smaller radio station, we'll take 4 days a quarter and say, if you played on these days, you'll get X amount. Unfortunately, if you're not played on the other days, we can't pay you. It might not seem fair, but it is. We've thought long and hard about it, and it is the best way to do it, because we would be talking about fractions of pennies otherwise. But pretty much anything over 1p, you'll get paid. Yeah.
Anyone else?
What's the criteria of the track to fill so it's like officially released? You know, so it's like it's a free download on SoundCloud. Could you still say that's released and then collect?
Yeah, you can. SoundCloud's quite an interesting one, because it's not actually licensed by PRS at the moment, but a lot of the other websites I showed you in the slide are, and you'll get royalties for them. But yeah, anything publicly performed, so anything on the internet on a significant site, I'd consider joining. But like I said, the amount of, if you saw the side of the amount of streams it takes to earn £100, you've got to be getting significant usage to join just on the basis of online. I'd always tell people, really consider, if your track's just been used online, you've got to be getting significant usage to think about joining, because you might not earn your money back.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be. You don't have to sell it online to make it release. It's up there. It's kind of.
Yeah, if it's up there for streaming, or for sale, you can join. Yeah.
Cool. And one more question. Sorry. So say you're on about a small venue scheme before.
Yeah.
If you release your own track on your own label.
Yeah.
And then play it out, does that, do you still get?
Yeah. So you won't get
Can I
mechanical.
just repeat that for the people
sorry.
watching, actually? Yeah. So if you release a track on your own label.
Yeah. If you release your own track on your own label and then you play it out in a small venue or whatever.
So if you play it out at a small venue, how would that work?
Yeah, you'd get paid. So like I said, the label bit is more towards MCPS, and the live performances is all about PRS as well. So if you wanted to join just PRS, so the vast majority of our membership are just PRS members, and that's why kind of a lot of my presentation is more focused on PRS. Yeah, you'll get paid. So it doesn't matter if it's not actually physically, if it's not released on a CD, it's not anywhere else. You're just playing it live, you'll get money. It doesn't actually have to be on a CD. It doesn't have to be recorded. If you're playing it live, that's the performance. You'll get paid.
We've got a few questions actually coming in online. Quite a few.
Okay.
One of the questions is, how on earth does PRS manage the admin side? How many staff are at PRS?
Yeah, I'll go back to this slide. So, we've faced a significant increase in data over, even since I've been working in the last 8 years. I think we had a few 100 million when I started working 8 years ago, and now we've got almost 100 billion data bits to process every year. So it's all done through IT wizardry pretty much, where we've got lots of clever systems that can auto-match things. So they'll look for song titles, look on our works database and match the two together. We also have a team of people employed who manually look at stuff as well. So if the systems can't automatically match it, we have people in our operations team who will look at anything over £5 pretty much that we haven't been able to match, and they'll manually do research. They'll go on the internet, they'll look on YouTube, and they'll go, actually that's that person's song, and they'll manually match it on our systems, and the system learns that and matches it in the future. So we do everything we can to process people and make sure people get paid.
Excellent. I've got another question here.
Yeah.
To clarify, I'm in a band. I get paid for the gig, and then if I submit our PRS list of the songs we played, do we get paid songwriting 3% royalties as well?
Yes, you do. I should have clarified that. So any money you earn from promoters, say a promoter pays you 100 quid, you'll still get paid from PRS. You don't get paid anything. You pay someone to actually play a pay-to-play gig, you'll get PRS. So it doesn't impact on the venues, it doesn't impact on the promoters. You'll always get paid from PRS as well. So always claim for that because you'll get money from us as well, as long as the venue's licensed. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else on the floor? Yeah, I'll just bring the mic a bit further over to you.
Yeah, you mentioned music festivals and box office takings. Obviously, at a festival there's hundreds of performers, so how do you work out the correct distribution, the same as a gig with support acts?
So it's done slightly different at festivals. So we'll actually have a look at the festival, look at the various stages, see what the biggest stages are, and look at the billing as well. So if you're on a smaller stage and you're the opening act and you play 5 songs, you get a percentage of the box office that's a lot smaller than the person playing 25 songs on the main stage headlining it. It's still considerably a lot of money as well playing a festival, but we do a lot of complex things and look at festivals and work out money that way as well.
Gentleman to the left as well, did you have a question? No?
Yes, yeah, it was to do with it was to do with sampling. So the Kanye track, is that presumably because he used sort of 20 odd samples?
Yes. Also just the kind of the world. Because I'm from more of a punk and rock background myself, so I kind of find it a bit bizarre that they seem to credit literally like the T person, they give them like 1% and stuff like that. But yeah, in terms of samples, a lot of dance and hip hop has a lot of samples in, and and you need to get clearance and then before you release stuff. So I get asked a question quite a lot about sampling, where people have said, "Oh, I've sampled this track, can I just release it?" And I say no. The official answer from PRS is get it cleared before, because once it's out there, they can basically get you over a barrel and get 100% of the money off you. So there's quite a few famous cases of songs where they've taken a sample, not cleared it first. It's only like a 5-second sample. It's kind of insignificant on the context of the whole track, but they haven't cleared it first, and they've lost 100% of the money on a track that's earned hundreds of thousands of pounds. And also, some people ask me about sampling in terms of how little of a track can I sample and get away with it, and there's no right answer on that. If you take 2 bars, if people can tell you've sampled it, then you need to get clearance. So,
Are there different types of clearance you can get? Because if you've used a sample, are they automatically classed as kind of a writer who's contributed to that track? Or you pay for the sample and not have to pay royalties, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Flat fee?
So the way it should work is we say they get a percentage. It's kind of negotiated between the 2 parties. So you give them the track and you say, look, I think you're due 5% of the track, and they go, the 50% mate, and you kind of negotiate like that. Or if they're published, you talk with their publisher. I was reading an article today actually about kind of buyouts, and a lot of people are just saying, look, here's 10 grand, you're not having any of the songwriting. Someone might go, I really need the money, yeah, I'll take the 10 grand. But PRS tends to try to stay out of the songwriting splits, but we always encourage songwriters to get a percentage of the song, because you've got no idea how big a song is going to be. It could be you're giving away 10% on nothing, or you could miss out. If you could take that couple of grand, you could miss out on a massive international hit and hundreds of thousands of pounds of royalties. So yeah, we'd always encourage getting percentages on a song for sampling. Yeah.
We've got another question here from YouTube.
Yeah.
Do different distribution services have different agreements upon royalties?
Yes, they do. Unfortunately, so as I kind of alluded to earlier, there's a different society. This is going to be a convoluted answer. As there's different versions of PRS around the world, and a digital service provider essentially has to get licenses from all of them at the moment. A lot of the agreements they sign with us are non-disclosure agreements, where even me as a PRS member doesn't know how, so a PRS employee doesn't know how much it's worth, because they don't want it out there of how much they paid us, because then they'd have to pay this other society this much, and they negotiate it. So yeah, the royalty rates are different between all the different digital service providers. So you can get a lot more from a stream on Apple Music than you can on smaller DSPs. Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions on the floor?
Sorry, yeah, I do have another one.
Yeah, okay.
Simply, how does it work for DJs? Because getting them to submit the set list could be a problem, I'd imagine. So.
Yes. Yes, so I talked a bit about the Amplify initiative. So a lot of DJs, if they're not playing any of their own music, they can't be asked to give us a set list. So we're doing a lot of we're moving towards doing a lot of digital fingerprint. The technology's here now, we're just getting through to the last few companies, and we're going to start actually digitally monitoring stuff. Because like you say, we actually go to a lot of the dance festivals, try and get set lists, and some of them would be really rude to us and be like, I'm not doing that. So yeah, so a lot of times, like I've done festivals before where just because I know the songs, I'm writing them down by the side of the stage. But yeah, it can be a problem, but hopefully technology is helping us get around that.
Actually, I've got a DJ question here as well. I think it means PRS license, but it says Pro Dub. I think that's...
Oh yeah.
Is that...
Yeah.
Is that correct? It says, I'm an international DJ. Should I have a Pro Dub license? Can you explain what that is?
Unfortunately, I can't, because that's more on the licensing side of things, and that's not really my area of expertise. I'm not sure if my email address is viewable for people, but they're welcome to email me questioning after, and I can find in off our licensing team about Pro Dub. It's not an area I know about too much to give a confident answer, I'm afraid.
It's a license for digital files, isn't it?
Yeah, but I can't go into it much more than that.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else got a question? Yeah?
Yeah, if you don't submit your players, like I've got mates who've played gigs before and submitted the playlist and then just wrote like all the songs that they've done so they get paid, but not necessarily played that set, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So with this new technology coming in, if you get caught doing it, can you get in any trouble? Or?
Yeah, we do have. We do have. Who are you mate? No, we do actually do a lot of. We actually employ quite a lot of independent surveyors as well that actually go to live shows and actually see what people play. So you do have covers bands saying, no, I didn't play covers. I played all these songs, even though you called like the Beatles or something like that. Yeah. So it is something we monitor, and if stuff does look suspicious, we do investigate it. So we treat everything on a case-by-case basis, really. So yeah.
Like bands, but what about DJs playing tracks in clubs?
So in terms,
they said they were playing that their full set was all their tracks.
Yeah, again, with kind of we can't monitor everything, but we do what we can to make sure. And if we find people are doing that, then there can be various consequences. We're not like the police; you're not going to get arrested for it. But yeah, we try and just make it fair. Because we just say to them, look, if you're a DJ, you're writing your own songs. If other people are playing your music, wouldn't you want them to kind of report it? It's So a lot of my job is going around, so talking to musicians in north of England, and like I was talking to Polk the other day, and Jarvis Cocker was saying one of the best things about PRS is you get a complete statement of all your tracks that are played around the world, showing when they were played on what radio station. So he was just saying how great it is to know like your tracks are being played by other people as well. So I kind of look at it more of, you might be screwing other people over, but you kind of also helping other musical creators if you report it honestly as well. And we are moving towards doing it more automated as well through technology. So.
Yeah, because as an artist, if DJs aren't submitting their track list with your tracks on it, you're missing out on the money. Right?
Yeah. Also, if you're aware of people doing that, you don't have to be the performer doing it. If you're aware of people, so yeah. So I've dealt with a lot of people who've written for pop people, and they're saying my track isn't being reported, even though I went to the gig and I know it is, and we can go contact the band and they can go, oh yeah, actually sorry, genuine mistake, I left it off. We can like backdate their royalties as well to make sure they get paid. So yeah.
Any other questions?
I've got my own radio show. If I start playing my own tunes on my show, is that cheating? Does it have to be someone else that isn't me playing my tunes?
It's interesting because I was talking to a Radio 1 DJ the other day, and he was saying he's had to sign something saying he couldn't do that, but it really depends on your station.
It's Bauer Network, it's the Hits Radio.
Yeah, you probably need to speak to your bosses first, but we'll still pay you. We don't know that. I could talk to you once the camera's off about others. I've encountered that a bit from people who got in trouble, but we'll talk about that after.
Any other questions?
If, for example, like a DJ plays or submits a track set list to you, does a DJ have to pay a fee at all, or is that part of the PRS license for the venue?
Yeah, it's the venue or the promoter that has to pay us, depending on kind of the setup they've got. So the only thing a DJ's got to lose by reporting is basically the time it takes to submit a set list to us. So yeah. Yeah.
What? Yeah, another question?
Yeah, sorry, I've got. Are you able to tell us any more about technology? Because I know Pioneer have got that Kuvo, haven't they, that they plug the decks into. What sort of technology are you using? Are you using boxes such as Kuvo? Or?
I'm not sure of the actual boxes we're using. At the moment, we're not using any because we've got it down to like the last 4 companies, and we're trialing them all at the moment. We use a company called Soundmouse to do a lot of radio stations. So there's quite a lot of radio stations that don't send us set lists because Soundmouse basically can recognise a track within 3 seconds and report it to us. So Soundmouse is the main company we're using at the moment. And yeah, once we've agreed on which technology company we're using, we'll announce that. So.
One more question from the gentleman at the back.
How exactly do you help producers with that PRS funding?
So in terms of the foundation, it's actually kind of a separate organisation to us, and they have I think they've got about 15 different schemes. A lot of it is to do with musical creators as well. So if you're part of the actual songwriting, I think they'd be more inclined to help you than whether you just actually. I talked earlier about producer, if you're just recording the tracks or if you're actually part of the songwriting process. Not sure if that answers your question, but yeah, I suggest have a look on the Foundation website and have a look at all the different initiatives they've got.
Did we have a question at the front? Yeah, just 2 seconds.
I'm not quite sure if this is your scope, but how do you go about registering a label with PRS for music?
So in terms, so you don't really need to register a label with us. The only kind of contact we have is through MCPS really, where we're contacting labels because they've released music by our members. So if you run a record label and one of your mates is an MCPS member and you're pressing his CDs, then we'll contact you to invoice you to get royalties to pay on to your mate in the band. So we don't pay royalties to record labels. We essentially take money off them to pay MCPS members. For record labels, as the owner of the sound recordings, they're going to get royalties from PPL, not PRS. So yeah, I'd suggest having a word. If you run a record label, I'd suggest having a word with PPL. In the new year, I'm going to start running events in the north of England where I'm going to get people from PPL, the MU, various labels, radio pluggers and stuff. So I think in about January I'm going to hopefully hold my first running band on the wall. So if you've got questions from other organisations that aren't PRS, then come along to one of those events and have a word with them.
It's because last year I tried getting a license from PRS for music and MCPS, and it was like about, I think it was about £900, £450 each, and they still turned it down even though I sent the check and everything, because there was some things that I was supposed to do or something. I couldn't understand it.
Yeah, yeah. If you're applying to press stuff, then it's done through the website and you pay for it. So we can talk about this after if you want. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyone else have any questions? Oh, you have one? There we go, Tony.
Does the £50 subscription fee cover both MCPS and PRS?
No, it's just one or the other. So like I said, the majority of our members are PRS members. One of the great confusions is people join PRS for music and think they've joined both, but yeah, it's quite clear on the website which one you join in. So if you want to join both, yeah, it's £100. A lot of our biggest songwriters aren't members of MCPS because we talked earlier about how when you sign with a publisher, normally they take 50% of your mechanical of your performing rights, but normally they take 100% of your mechanicals and pay a percentage of that onto you. So if you're published, then you don't need to join MCPS. But we'd always encourage published songwriters to join PRS as well to make sure they continue to get their 50%. So, yeah.
Any more questions?
Do you have one? Yeah, I'm almost embarrassed to ask because I've got with regards to copyright, you say it's an automatic right, but say for instance you were patenting something totally different, like tools you have to pay to get that right, do you? So how is it just an automatic right in music? Or?
That's a very good question, and something I meant to say on that earlier slide. So in the UK, there's no formal way of registering a musical copyright. What we tell people to do is record a track onto a CD, post it to your self-recorded delivery, leave it unopened, and then if anything ever went to court, which I've heard about, I could count the amount of fingers on my hand, then you've got tangible proof that you recorded this song on this date, so you are the holder. You can also register a copy with a solicitor or a bank manager. That's going to cost you a lot more money. So yeah, that's the way to do it. So in the US, you can send a copy to Washington for a fee. There's a lot of websites that I probably shouldn't badmouth on camera that offer copyright protection, but they don't. They're just trying to get you money. That's the way we do it. I was on a panel the other day with a musical solicitor, and he basically went, yeah, that's the best way to do it. So. And
obviously you wouldn't open.
No.
You wouldn't open the envelope. You'd give it to the solicitor to open because you could just open it.
Yeah.
Anyone could just cheat.
Or you might want to wait to a dramatic bit in court and whip it out and go, here's my evidence. Yeah.
So not just email it to yourself.
Or
to someone else.
Kind of. Some of our rules are quite old school, but we don't. I'm not sure whether it's just we haven't got round to addressing that, or whether you can manipulate emails easier and change the date on them. But we still say old school, post it to yourself. Yeah. And again, when the cameras are off, I can tell you an interesting story about that as well. Yeah.
I've just got one other question that's come through online. When you said it was 70 years for samples in the UK, does that mean the producer using the sample is in the UK, or that the artist lived in the UK?
I don't think I said that. What I was talking about was in terms of copyright, how it lasts 70 years beyond death. So yes, I guess the question is, if you're sampling a track that someone's been dead more than 70 years, can you? So basically, if you want to sample a classical track, yes, you can. So yeah, I think that might answer the question. But yeah, if you're sampling someone who's still alive or their song's still in copyright because they haven't been deceased 70 years, then yeah, you need to get clearance. I said it gets more complicated when songs are co-written as well, because it basically goes to the last person to co-write the song to die. So so yeah, it gets complicated. So if you take someone like the Beatles, 2 of them are still alive, so the 70 years hasn't kind of started ticking on those tracks, so you're not going to be able to sample them for quite a while without getting clearance.
There's the notion of public domain, isn't it?
Yeah.
Music becomes.
Yeah. So I think there's quite.
Out of copyright.
Yeah, so there's quite a lot of work to do for us when one of the big classical people comes out of copyright, because we have to update all the works and say they're now public domain, we don't collect any royalties for them.
So after the 70 years have finished, is there any other way of carrying on the royalties, or is that it? It goes to public domain?
Yeah, that's pretty much it, yeah.
Cliff Richard's having a good go, though, isn't he? Adding another 10 years on.
Any other questions before I wrap this up? No? Okay. Perfect. Well, I suppose all I can say really is thank you very much, Daniel. I think he deserves a round of applause. Thank you very much for watching MMS Sessions number 7. If you just want to hop over to our YouTube channel, if you're not there already, to watch it again, and if you want to check out any of the courses that we offer online, just head over to www.midischool.com. Thank you very much.